Hello and welcome back to The Hatch. I'm Rosie Murphy.
And I'm Sammy Roth, and this is the podcast where we talk about Lost.
Today we have watched Season 2, Episode 15, Maternity Leave. We're finally going to find out exactly what happened to Claire when she was absent for a while.
And we've got more from our conversation with Michael Emerson, who plays Ben. He talks with us about his relationship with Terry O'Quinn and what it was like for the two of them to act together on this show, and it is quite wonderful.
Let's get right to it.
As always on The Hatch, we start with our hot takes about this week's episode. Rosie, what is your hot take?
So in Claire's on-island flashback, when we see that she was kept by the others in this treatment facility / hospital, when she goes in to see the little room that they've prepared for her baby, there's a mobile above the crib, and it's just a bunch of tiny oceanic planes. How fucked up is that?
It was pretty weird because, they seem to be trying to stop her from remembering what happened, and yet also there are oceanic planes in her room. I didn't think it was very smart strategy by the others.
Well, no, and it also, as a viewer, made me feel like, is this all a dream? Like, is Claire populating this, with memories from her own head? And of course, it's not all a dream. But it was very confusing, and if that was intentional by Ethan and company, that's a real rude.
No, you're right. It was pretty fucked up. I agree with that. I also have a hot take about Claire, related to Claire, which is that I thought, she was a little all over the map this episode in terms of, the rationality of her thinking and decision-making, which maybe is, totally understandable given the situation she's in, and we can talk about that. But I just thought it was, pretty weird how quickly she went from, oh my god, the others made my baby sick, to, oh my god, the others were giving my baby medicine, and I need to go get the medicine to save him. She kind of just flipped real quickly.
Yeah, I see what you're saying, but I think part of that is just how sparse those memories were in coming back. And I think what we see in those flashbacks, which are actually flashbacks Claire's having in the present, as she's sort of recovering these memories, right? What she's experiencing is not just, I remember what happened to me there, but also I remember how I felt there.
Oh, that's interesting.
She was she seems like she was pretty heavily drugged or something, because she was clearly, in the flashbacks kind of stumbling around and kind of, in the face.
Yeah, what happened to Charlie?
Yeah, and I think, she, even when she leaves, when Alex helps her escape from that place, she's saying she wants to go back to Ethan. She wants them to care for the baby. She really did feel safe there, and she really did think Aaron was going to be safe there. And I think she had forgotten that too. And I think part of what's coming back here is not just the facts of what happened, but also the emotion that came with it. Because after she recovers all of the memories, it becomes a complete picture.
Right, that's a good point. I think that actually does a very good job of explaining the source of my hot take.
Oh,
and
well.
now it has become much more lukewarm.
I apologize.
That's okay, but we're talking about Claire anyway, so we should keep talking about Claire probably.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting how much more sense this makes in hindsight, where about the fertility problems and why the others were so concerned and why they would have wanted to, keep her very close and take good care of at least the baby medically.
Absolutely.
And do the delivery early, and I guess do a C-section, it looks like, is what they would have done. That all makes so much more sense knowing what we know about the history of childbirth on the island and why they would have been amazed that she was able to carry the pregnancy to term. Right,
and I can't really remember how I felt the first time I saw this episode, but it's very unsettling if you don't know that.
It's very unsettling if you know that, but I think you're right. Less so when you at least understand what their motivation is and why.
Right, because then it becomes this weird obsession with this child and Claire, and that's all just pretty dark. The place itself is so interesting. The place that the others have created or used, I guess, because it's a Dharma facility, as their kind of delivery room / nursery, because they've created these very warm spaces. There's the doctor's office, there's the little nursery for the baby, but then the rest of the hall is just those flickering bunker lights.
Yes.
And it's just, I don't know, I wonder why they decided to do it there instead of like creating a space in Otherville because this was, as you said, an ongoing problem that they'd been working on for years to try to solve.
Yeah, that's a really good question. I guess if you think that they're going to let Claire live and go back to camp, if you think that, then an explanation would be that they maybe didn't want her to have seen their like main headquarters and village and be able to lead everyone back there. At the end of the day, it's like all she is able to lead them to is this disused Dharma station that tells them really, nothing about the other society except for
they've
left
got
their
some
stupid costumes there. Yeah.
Do you think they were going to let Claire live?
That's a really good question.
Because I don't know.
I think that Ethan certainly would have let her live if it was up to him.
Do you think he genuinely cared about her?
I think by the end of this episode, I do buy in, especially knowing that when we see and learn more about Ethan later and realize that he's not just this, like, creepy spy character who hangs Charlie from the tree. Like, yes, he does that, but he also seems like he, has another part to him that's a warm and decent person when he needs to be. So, yeah. I don't know if you agree or disagree, but I buy into Ethan as actually wanting to protect Claire at the end of the day.
Well, interestingly, I mean, even if Claire had given birth and the others had kept Aaron, whose name would probably not then be Aaron, but that's a moot point, that wouldn't have solved their fertility problem. It would have just given them a baby. But I guess the end goal wasn't the baby. It was like to observe the birth and see if things were normal.
Yeah. In fact, that would probably be an argument for why they would have wanted to let Claire live, to see if she would have recovered and been okay.
Right, and potentially, yeah. Did she get sick? Did the baby get sick? Did, whatever.
Can I just comment that I love that we get an episode with a ton of William May Pother and a ton of Mira Furlan as Rousseau, and they're both just wonderful, and I love watching them.
I know.
And shout out, by the way, that for those of you who didn't listen to our first season, we did interview William May Pother, who plays Ethan, last year over a couple episodes. You should totally go back and listen. He's super cool and not a creepy fuck. He's a good guy.
And he references this episode and says the viewer's experience is, holy fucking shit, it's Ethan Rom, which is, in fact, what I thought when he appeared in Claire's flashback. So
anyway, but you were going to say something substantive about Ethan or Rousseau.
About Rousseau, yeah. So there's a confrontation between Rousseau and Kate when Kate still, when they don't know if they can trust her, which I think is totally understandable.
Yeah.
Rousseau having kidnapped the baby once before. But Kate pulls a gun on her and Rousseau says, go ahead, please kill me, which is something we have seen several people do lately, which is pretty dark. I mean, Saeed said something similar, and
it's true.
Ana Lucia said something similar. And here we have a third character who's at that level of desperate. But Rousseau is also not fresh out of a crisis here. Like, she has been alone for 16 years. So a brief but challenging glimpse into what goes on with Rousseau. However, I mean, I think part of the reason she's stayed alive, like part of what's kept her alive this long, is hope that she'll one day find her daughter, right?
Yeah.
And do you think she helps them because Claire says early on, I remember a teenage girl?
Oh, absolutely.
That's her hope the whole time.
Yeah. I think that, and I think watching this, that's a sort of great hindsight thing where that's coming, where her actions actually make so much sense step by step through this episode.
Yeah.
And the emotions that she's experiencing. I actually think the way they do that reveal with introducing Alex here through like those brief flashes of Claire's memory, and then building up to the revelation that, oh, this is Rousseau's daughter, and oh, she helped Claire escape. I think it's a pretty powerful story. And then when you realize that both mother and daughter, who haven't seen each other in 16 years and don't know each other at all, were the two forces that got Claire out of that room, like, it's amazing. Right.
Yeah. And that they have the same instinct of, get away from this place. And
yeah.
Yeah.
Also think, especially, and this is all bleeding into hindsight, but like knowing what we know later about, Alex's relationship with Ben and her situation with the others, like, it's so brave what she does, going in there and pulling Claire out when everyone else is just nearby. Like, that could have ended real badly for her.
Yeah. Yeah, although I guess when you're kind of the boss's daughter, that probably insulates her against some things.
I suppose that's a fair point.
You know, like they couldn't just kind of take her out and shoot her. Not that
This
they
is
would
true.
necessarily.
This is true.
But
I still want to give her credit for it, but this is true.
yeah, no, it's absolutely brave. And we see something similar with Carl later on, right? But yeah.
I have another idea, which is we should never talk about Carl on this show.
Why? Carl's fine.
The actor is so bad.
Oh, well, we'll discuss that in
2 years.
A year or two.
What else is going on this episode? One question that I have is the scene where Claire sort of gives the monologue to the baby about how she's, really glad they're together. This was how it was supposed to be, that she didn't give her up. And I guess I was just, I was thinking about the sort of thematically in Claire's story that obviously, like, this is really the big thing that happens internally with Claire over the first year or two of the show, which is that she was going to give up this baby. She was totally set on doing that. And then they kind of, she got stuck on the island. She didn't have a choice. Now she kept the baby, and now she loves and wants to keep the baby. I just wonder, do you think it's just sort of as simple as once she had no choice but to deliver the child and get to know him, that was, inevitable that she was going to love the baby and want to keep him? Or do you think there's anything deeper and more complicated going on here within Claire that could explain sort of the about face for her?
I think to an extent it's inevitable. I mean, mothers bond with babies. Like that's biological, that's widespread.
Right.
But I think once she got to the island, she kind of pretty quickly came to terms with the fact of like, well, I'm gonna have this baby and there's nowhere there's no way to give it up. I have no other choice now. And Claire, I think Claire's an optimist. I think she's the kind of person who makes the best of whatever she's got. And I think once she came around to that idea of like, well, there's not really another choice here. And in a way, what we see in her flashback is that she did have another chance to give up the baby and she was going to take it. Even though it was kind of not her idea.
That's a good point.
Ethan kind of goaded her into it, but she was again going to give it up. And again, she was sort of pulled out of there kind of against her own will. Again, she was, maybe not in her right mind during that time. But no, I think she just kind of like circumstances required her to have the baby and then to care for Aaron. And then there were so many threats to Aaron early in his life. Like there was Rousseau, there were the others, there was all this stuff. There was Charlie. Claire has really had to like fight to protect this baby.
That's interesting. So maybe the protective instinct plays a role in that.
Yeah, I think so. I think they're one and the same. They feed each other. But like once Aaron was born, like little guy has not had an easy life. Many people have tried to steal him. So
this is true. This is true.
Yeah, the one thing I just wanted to give a shout out to about this episode is that most of this episode passes the Bechdel test, right? We have many women talking to each other about things other than romantic interests. And it's a pleasure to watch. And a nice reminder that Lost also had some very, very strong female leads.
And I know we've done sort of a bunch of hindsights, but do you have any additional hindsight this week?
I'm not sure it's a hindsight. The scene at the very end with Mr. Echo is... Oh, yeah,
we should talk about that.
So surprising and so weird, but in such a good way. Like, Echo finds out there's a man in the hatch. That shouldn't be surprising to anybody. Then he has to talk to him, and then he tells him that he killed these men.
Smashed in their head with a stone. Felt their blood on my arms. I need you to know how sorry I am for this. I need you to know that I am back on a righteous path now. and that I regret my actions.
Which leads you to believe that he knows that Ben is one of the others, one of them.
Yeah.
But no, he just needed to tell someone who didn't know his current party. I think he does deep down, like, know or suspect that Ben is one of the others.
I do as well.
And that's part of the reason this is sort of a valid confession of guilt. But it's just, I don't know, it gave me like a pleasant little shiver.
I mean, the hindsight that I have is that I was really struck in one of Claire's memory flashbacks where Ethan is sitting outside with her and he says to her, "We're good people, Claire." Mm-hmm. Because it immediately made me think of Ben's much more iconic line, "We're the good guys, Michael." Mm-hmm. And I thought it was interesting because I had forgotten that Ethan says this here. And it's basically it's the exact same sentiment.
Yeah.
And yet this line is not remembered so well, and it's just and also, you know, he goes on and makes the speech about how, look, it's your choice, you have a choice, which is so such a big foreshadow of that's what Jacob's whole attitude is going to be down the road, and sort of, you know, of always telling the candidates you have a choice, and telling
I see where you're going with this, but I would question whether Claire really had a choice.
I mean, and the man in black questioned whether Jacob was ever really giving people choices.
Right. Because, I mean, Claire was drugged. She didn't know what had happened to her. Is that a choice?
But I think you're totally right, though, and I think what we're seeing here is one of the first framings that we get of this, what ultimately becomes this wider, thematic conflict of, we're the good guys versus no, you're not really the good guys.
Right.
And I had just forgotten that we get a little glimpse of that here. Mm-hmm. So we have Michael Emerson. Yeah.
Speaking of the good guys, Michael Emerson, one of the best guys. We are going to continue to play our interview with him both this week and next. Let's get right to that.
Yeah, I guess to go back to the beginning a little bit, I mean, you make such a, big, strong, intense introduction when you're introduced on this show. Like, going back and watching season 2, the whole dynamic and tenor just changes really, really fast when you get in there, where suddenly, this guy Henry Gale is like the focal point, and everyone is running around trying to figure out what to do about Henry Gale. And you bring out all of these, alliances between the characters and divisions between them. I'm really interested in, what that was like for you to sort of be dropped into this pop culture phenomenon, like out of nowhere, and suddenly, you're, maybe not the star of the show, but certainly the focal point of this story, and how, how you handled that as an actor, and also just, whether that created a kind of pressure on you.
To hear you describe it as you've just done, I think that's a terrifying job. And had I known it was going to play that way, I'd have been, shaken by it. As it was, day by day, show up, do the scenes, and only gradually did it dawn on me that it was a more important role than I ever dreamt. I think they needed to put a face to the menace of the island. I don't know how much longer they could just go with the odd miracles and noises at night, smoke monster, stuff like that. They needed to personalize the enemy. And I guess if I hadn't worked out, they could have, he would have been easy to kill, and they could have, gone to a plan B. But once I saw they were going to stick with that, I did feel some responsibility. I felt like it was a lot, but I had a good handle on it. I thought I couldn't think of a different way to pursue my work or to think about the character. I thought, I'll just show up, and believe me, it is rare enough in a character actor's life, in a guy who does guest spots mostly. It is rare enough to have it just work. Mm-hmm. For you to be the right guy for the role, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
Then I didn't have to think about, how would I play this or how would I play that? It all just seemed perfectly instinctual. It seemed there was only kind of one way to go with everything, and they seemed very happy with it.
At the risk of asking you to brag about your own acting abilities, what do you think it was that made you stick so well? I mean, why do you think they said, okay, let's do another episode, and then we're going to make you a regular?
I don't know. I think because I think I was able, based on these scripts, to be a mystery and yet theatrical at the same time. This was a good part for a theater actor, I always felt that. And that's what I was, or maybe still am. But it was just, it just played to my strengths, I guess. I felt, if you feel confident about what you're playing, then you're running on automatic. Your instincts are always making the choices, and most of them are going to be good, and some of them are going to be great. And, you're living in a golden age of your working life when it clicks that well. If you click in a play, you're employed for 6 months. If you click in a TV series, it could go on and on. And a lot of people will see you, and a lot of people will remember your face. Mm-hmm. So it is, it falls slightly into the careful what you wish for category, because when you're the right fit for a role that's really visible or iconic, then that's what people think you are, or that's what they think you'll do.
Yeah.
Sometimes you could get pigeonholed. You could, as I did, get a lot of evil genius offers from that, or when I played a serial killer successfully once on The Practice, for a long time after that, all I got was serial killer offers. Because I think, the industry is just, they don't operate on the idea of what else could this person do. They operate on the idea of, we need this thing to be done right now, and we know they can do that. Mm-hmm. It's just economics, I guess. But anyway, that was a long and rambling answer to your question.
No, I think you raised a couple of really interesting points, and I wonder if you could expand on that. I mean, are you still Ben Linus? Do you feel like you're still known for this role?
I'm very much Ben Linus on the streets today, even though I did more episodes of another series since then. It has the greater reach. It has the greater reach geographically. And more, just because there's so many platforms now, so much streaming, and now kids that were too young to watch it, they're watching it. People in foreign countries are just getting it. Some places are only getting these streaming services now. I see. So people stop me a lot, and I never know whether it's going to be for Lost or Person of Interest. Sometimes both. But both of those were good shows to get on, and one a little different from the other. You always hope.
What do people, when they stop you and want to talk about Lost, what do they say, or what do they ask you?
They say what a family experience it was watching it. In most cases, it was a show where parents could watch with their children if the kids were 10 years old or older, something like that, because it was never really too raunchy or political. It was a family show, and I think globally it had such a mixed up cast of types and ethnicities that it had an appeal that way. I think it was good. I mean, so people talk about that family viewing experience, and then of course they bitch about the ending, which is that's like the number 2 point. It may be the number 1 point. If it's a fast conversation, like you're in a crosswalk in Midtown, and somebody goes, "Dude, you were Ben Linus." Yes, I was. Thank you. Glad you enjoyed the show. Hated the ending, and that's it.
People are so rude. Why would you say that to someone in the street?
Why would you? I always think, wow. But I guess they have that sense of, and it's a thing you don't realize until you're on a visible series like this, that people on the street who've watched you in 100 episodes of something, they feel like they're intimate with you or that they know you. But they have the advantage of you. They know me. They feel like they know me inside out. I've never met them before. So it's a wacky kind of out of balance meeting.
Mm. Yeah, and I guess they feel like they know you and that you might try to kill them if they're not careful.
Well, you get that. I mean, I get that on planes. You know.
Oh no.
I board the plane and then people are coming by and somebody will touch me on the shoulder and go, "Do I need to be worried?" Oh. No, I'm on a different show now.
That's real nice. Well, you bring up the finale then, so we got to ask, what was your take on the finale?
Well, I love the finale. I think that every big series, that the way the narrative is constructed dictates how it will be ended. If your show goes in a straight line or something, then the ending can be abrupt or in keeping with everything that went before. But on a show like Lost, which had so many conceits in it and so much conceptual in it and was alternately spiritual, metaphysical, philosophical, speculative, science fiction, all of that, it was like a narrative that was exploding out from the center. So the only way I think to end it properly is to come back to the center. And they did it visually with Jack and his eyes. But I think since it was a story of people finding themselves and maybe finding love or meaning, I think it was a good idea to have it be that long afterlife gateway to paradise kind of scenario where that chapel was, where Jack comes before he leaves the plane of existence. And everyone he ever knew or loved is there, and they're all there in pairs, like in a Shakespearean comedy in the fifth act. People go off twos by twos, to hopefully a better life or happiness or wedded bliss or something like that. And so I felt like it was their Shakespearean comedy ending, a happiness and a sense of hope, and a sense of an afterlife or a spiritual conclusion. I thought that was good. Nestor Carbonell explains it in a really concise way. We did the Comic Palooza in Houston in May, and he really nailed it. His take is it's all about Jack and Jack's end, and that's why Jack's father is there to tell him that it's okay, that this is. But for me, the actor playing Benjamin Linus, what could have been better than to be left out, to be left on the bench, a character out of Waiting for Godot? It was just so great. So it seemed lovely to me, spiritual, sweet.
And I think we both agree we're fans of the ending. So
yeah,
and that's an eloquent way you've put it.
Yeah, and your point about what happens to Ben at the end is a good one. It is really poetic and even brings his character full circle. Do you think there is redemption for Ben, or do you think there is conclusion for Ben? And what did that look like?
He just has to wait longer.
Huh.
I mean, if we're talking about redemption or a kind of purgatorial scenario, Ben has more to atone for. Also, no one seems to be able to leave the plane of existence without a mirror redeemer. Someone that they found that who that loved them unconditionally and accepted them flawed. So Ben's just waiting for that. And I think the idea is that you keep cycling back. He'll go back to some version of this existence, sideways, backward, forward, something.
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting because I think, and I hope I'm not wrong about this, but I think of the people in the church, the only one who doesn't have that mirror with them is Locke. He's in there on his own, which I always found to be kind of curious. I did want to talk about Ben's relationship with Locke a little bit, which I think is probably like the central relationship for Ben's character except for his daughter, of course. But in terms of like the main cast, and because obviously you kill Locke in the end, and you apologize to him for that in the finale, and I'm really curious what it was like over the course of the show between you and Terry O'Quinn to kind of play out this relationship that changed so much over time, and eventually gets to the point where Ben is almost sort of the acolyte to Locke. It just changes so much.
It was really good. I mean, it's a dream come true. If you're a player, you want that. You want a great adversary. You want those pressure cooker scenes where so much is at stake, where the language is precise, careful, where there's real philosophical or ethical stakes. And we always had that, I was always, one or the other of us was always under duress, being held, chained, shackled, either really or metaphorically, and the other probing, like fencing or like a game of chess, maybe. A sense of gamesmanship at a level of stakes off the chart. Like life and death conversations. Not necessarily physical danger, but moral danger, ethical danger. It was great. And I thought it showed what our writers were made of, Damon and Carlton. Coming up with, that was some esoteric talk those two characters engaged in. But
extremely.
It meant something, It was like a debate, in a way, a debate of many chapters about faith, among other things.
There's a really amazing line in one of your first episodes where, after you've finally been revealed as not Henry Gale, where Locke says, "God knows how long we've been here," and you say, "God doesn't know how long we've been here, John. He can't see this island any better than the rest of the world can." Which I love, and I still don't fully understand what he's talking about, but it's such a there's something very deep going on there for sure.
Yeah, on the surface of it, that line seems like a cynical line or a thing of hopelessness, but then you factor in that Ben better understands the mechanics of this world that they're in, the island and how it works and stuff. So it may have been, for Ben, it may have been a plain statement of fact or belief. If it's his belief, what does that mean? If it's a fact, what does that mean? It was good. I mean, there was always a lot of questions. Let me tell you. So we'd finish scenes and we'd walk away and go, so what did we just do? Who won that scene? Did anyone win? Such gamesmanship. It's great. I mean, it was like being in a great play, because I thought it was as carefully written as a great play.
Yeah, they never left anything to chance. It's remarkable in that way.
Terry O'Quinn, the mightiest scene partner I'll probably ever see. He was. We stay in touch because I don't know. And then too, he and I were men of similar age, similar background. We both had plenty of stage time behind us, and we had similar attitudes about working, about our craft. We were both kind of technical workaday actors that clocked in and clocked out and didn't get too wound up or too upset about things, but just really enjoyed the scene work. I mean, I don't think I'll ever play a mightier scene with greater stakes or greater tension in it than that scene in, is it season 5, where Locke's going to hang himself and Ben talks him out of it?
Yeah.
And then they talk for a little bit, and then Ben strangles him. What the heck? It was, and well, partly just because as great as Terry is, I'm here to tell you, he was never greater than he was on that day.
Yeah, that's definitely a scene that's still difficult to think about because it was so hard to watch.
Man.
Yeah, and I think we were all left with the same question there as you were of what is Ben doing? Why after saving his life is he...
Why does he need to be the one to commit this act? What does John have over him? Yeah, I mean, I'm still asking all these questions and it's been 10 years.
The thing was he needed a couple of small pieces of information. Mm-hmm. And he got them from the softened and fractured John Locke as they sat after he'd been talked down off the table where he was going to hang himself.
Yeah.
And when Ben got what he needed, it was actually better. It was going to be better if John wasn't around.
Amazing.
Terrible scene to play with a friend, with a good friend.
I am so struck and like kind of delighted, but also annoyed that people pass Michael Emerson in the crosswalk and shout about how much they hated the finale.
I know. People, if you see Michael Emerson in the street, tell him how wonderful he is. Ask him questions. Don't bitch about the ending. Leave him alone.
He had no power over that.
It's not his fault. God.
Yeah.
It's amazing to hear him talk about working with Terry O'Quinn and the Ben Locke relationship.
Yep.
So good.
I'm almost glad that the scene where Ben kills Locke was as difficult for them to perform as it was for us to watch. Like, not difficult, but as sort of emotionally difficult.
Yes.
Because that, just tears your heart out when you see it. And I haven't watched it in a few years now, but I'm looking forward to watching it again. Just like shot for shot.
Yeah, definitely not a scene that you pull up on YouTube, though, just for fun to like relive the moment.
No, but it really is like two masters. Like, if I remember correctly, there's very little sound, there's very little light. It's just them.
Yeah.
Absolutely masterful.
As we mentioned, we'll have one more segment with Michael Emerson next week. We'll be watching The Whole Truth. Got Any Milk? That is all in next week's episode, so stay tuned.
As always, you can chat with us on Facebook. We're at facebook.com/The Hatch Podcast, on Twitter @The Hatch Podcast.
Subscribe to us if you don't already on your podcast app, and please rate us, give us 5 stars if you would like, or however many stars you think we deserve, and leave a review. It helps other people find the show.
Our theme music is by Andy G. Cohen, and our cover art is by Danny Roth.
And we will see you next week.
Namaste.